What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be ranking every trait in Merge Tactics from worst to best. There are 11 traits in the game right now. I'm going to be telling you what's good about them, what's bad about them, what you should be using, and what the current meta is. We are going to start with the worst trait in the game, which in my opinion is Undead. Now, you know that Undead is all about cursing the enemies, and then once you kill them, your Undead units gain plus, 30% damage, I believe, something like that. It is great when you're going against very few units. In the early game, in the very early season, it was good because everybody had 6 units all the time with Spirit Empress. That was just what the game was. That's not the case anymore. You've got Lung, who's got 7 units on the board. You got Battle Machine, who has 5 units but 4 buildings sometimes. You have the extra building modifiers. You have Witch with all of her skeletons that you throw out there. Skeleton Dragon spawning other cards. And so it's very, very difficult to get value out of those curses because you're only cursing like 1, 2, or 3 enemies at a time based on how many undead units you have, and that's changed from last season, obviously, because they don't have the 6 out of 6 anymore. But there's just not as much value that you can get from the curses, and as it curses the highest HP enemies, which are fine, but those HP enemies are often far behind in the back of the line, especially when you have buildings that are sitting back there and higher HP units. Like a 3-star Witch is going to get cursed, but then you're never going to get to her because all of her skeletons are up there blocking for her. The extra damage, honestly, is not that insane compared to some other stuff that's in the game right now. It's just not overall an incredibly broken trait. Definitely not one of my favorites, and I just don't really recommend you go for a team crafted around Undead. Now, of course, Witch is one of, if not the best cards in the game. Incredibly, incredibly strong with those skeletons, but that's really just her ability and the ability paired with Superstar that makes her so good. Her Undead trait does really nothing to help. I mean, same with Skeleton Dragons. They are pretty good, not broken by any means. Royal Ghost is really bad, and there's just not a lot of value you're going to get out of all those cards besides Witch. I mean, even Skeleton King with that Brutalist trait isn't incredibly good. Just not the same as he was before, and that's why I think Undead is the worst trait in the game. Now, number 10 is going to be the Noble trait. I really do not think the Noble trait is that good in Merge Tactics right now, mainly because of its simplicity. It's just not really changed with the game. It's been the same since the beginning, and it's just been kind of power crept by some of the other traits that do so much more for your team. It's one of those traits that, well, if I have a Musketeer out there and I'm looking for a Blaster, I might as well get a Princess since it gives me the Noble trait. Nobody's going for 4 out of 4 Noble ever. It is just not good. The extra damage from the backline is okay. When you're playing Assassins, your Golden Knight will start in the backline, but he's not good this season. Princess and Musketeer, both very good cards. They are backline troops, but again, they're kind of carried by their Superstar and their Blaster traits. They are not, good based on their Noble traits alone. Obviously, Knight removed is one of the better Noble cards that was taken out of the game, and Prince being the last one, and just another kind of mid card overall. Not great, not bad. It just means that the Noble trait overall does not have good units, and therefore you're not getting a ton of value. I mean, the frontline units having that damage reduction doesn't really mean anything. You never are going to play your units with Noble in the front line, especially with Knight taken out of the game. So I think overall Noble could just definitely use some kind of rework, definitely something that benefits each individual card more. It was even better when it boosted the whole team, but now since it just boosts the Nobles, you're not getting any value out of that frontline damage reduction. And so I think it's just overall not good. Now, like I said, it's something that you're going to take advantage of with your Musketeer and your Princess when that happens. And so it's not the worst because of that, but it is very close at number 10. The next trait on the list, number 9, is going to be Brutalist. I think it's very underwhelming. I have not seen any value in playing it. Some people have said it's good. I just don't see any value in it whatsoever. They gain that bonus hit speed. They mark the enemies, and then they lose HP after the marks. All that has to work together in tandem, and you got to remember that there are other traits out there, like that Superstar, that's absolutely going crazy. You got the Clan trait where people are healing, you got Blaster where people are doing tons of damage, Ranger people speeding up and going crazy. There's just so much more going on, and the Brutalists are kind of slow to catch up to that pace. The extra hit speed is nice, but the cards themselves are just not strong. Goblin Machine is a very bad card. One of the biggest fall-offs ever. The biggest fall-off ever for being the top card in the game for like a whole season and a half, all the way down to being at the bottom 5, bottom 10, definitely close in that range. He's just not a good card at all. Skeleton King himself has kind of fallen off, gotten weaker, mainly because of the Undead trait and the Brutalist trait being bad, but overall he's just not incredible. The Mini P.E.K.K.A. is not an incredible card by any means. The damage is nice, but he just doesn't provide anything else to your team as far as survivability, and his traits with the P.E.K.K.A. is not, the traits shared with the P.E.K.K.A. there is not incredible. It's better. It's definitely better than Brutalist, but it's not that good. And then obviously you have the Valkyrie, and the Valkyrie is a good card in my opinion, always has been, still is this season, not nearly as good as she was. But that Brutalist trait just kind of really brings her down. The Juggernaut to Brutalist change was a huge fall off. I'm really glad they removed Juggernauts. I think that made the game very, one-sided towards having that team, or at least two members of that team in any game. Otherwise, you were definitely going to lose. And so I'm glad that's been removed from the meta. But I just don't think they hit the mark exactly where they wanted to with the Brutalist trait. And that's why it is number 9 on my list. Next on the list is going to be the Assassin's trait. Now, obviously, Assassins have never changed. They've been the same the entire time. They jumped to the back line, and now they have a bit more critical chance and critical damage. The reason that I don't think they're that good this season is just because of the fall off of the cards themselves. Now, this does kind of happen in two ways. Golden Knight fell off very hard. Golden Knight is not very good this season. Noble is very bad. There's just not a lot of value he gets from his dash now since it's limited to 3. I'll tell you what, if Golden Knight was the old Golden Knight and he could dash infinitely, he'd be the best counter to Witch by far, but that's just not the case because his dash is now capped at 3. Definitely a huge nerf to him. Didn't need to happen, I think so, because otherwise he's just so broken. But he's just kind of fallen too far out of the meta to where Assassins really are not that good anymore. Stab Goblin is still a decent card. He's not horrible. He does decent damage. Pretty good when you get him into the backline there. And so he provides some value. The Royal Ghost provides no value. Horrible, horrible card. Undead is really bad. His ability is, inconsistent. He's fallen off so hard from where he was after the game's release. He was obviously one of, if not the best cards as soon as the game dropped, and now he's just got no spot in the meta. For a 4 elixir card, he doesn't do 4 elixir card things. Witch is a 4 elixir card. Princess is a 4 elixir card. And Ghost is nowhere near that level. Undead trait is bad, and he just doesn't get enough value out of him being an assassin. Bandit is actually pretty good. Bandit is a pretty good card this season, especially because of the Ace trait being much better than it was last season. But I just don't see a lot of value for her coming from the Assassin trait because, her dash can dash very far now. She dashes crazy far, does good damage, good stuns, and that's not, a requirement for her to be an Assassin for that dash to get that value like that. So I think because her skill does not come from Assassins and all the other Assassins really aren't doing that well, I do think it's lower on the list. You still get some value out of it, so that's why it's number 8 and not all the way back to the bottom, but it's not that incredible. Number 7 is going to be the P.E.K.K.A. trait, and the P.E.K.K.A. trait is pretty simple. They gain bonus damage and they heal after killing troops. It's just the Evo P.E.K.K.A. that's put into merge tactics and applied to both the P.E.K.K.A. and the mini P.E.K.K.A. Now, is there a ton of value that comes from that? No, but it can be very helpful, especially in the early game. You got a 2 elixir card and a 3 elixir card. P.E.K.K.A. has always been one of the best early game cards because of the massive damage, and mini P.E.K.K.A. is very similar in that way, does a lot of good early game damage and can get you some early wins, which are very important on some rulers, like a Spirit Empress, like a Lung, where you really want those early wins. King, don't really need them, you want to take those losses. Battle Machine, Battle Machine is its own other strategy entirely. But the P.E.K.K.A. trait just doesn't give you enough to where you're going to be running it in the end game, and I think that's largely because the troops themselves are not that strong. P.E.K.K.A. is also a brawler, which is a big change. I mean, she's kind of been all over the place, having the Juggernaut and then going to Avenger, which was not great last season, and then now being a brawler, kind of being mixed up around a lot and not really finding a single spot. And then mini P.E.K.K.A. having that Brutalist trait as well just doesn't give you a lot of value late into the game. And you'll see a theme here is that, especially when I do my card tier list, the cards are ranked a lot based on traits that do well at the end of the game. So P.E.K.K.A. is a pretty good trait at the beginning of the game, able to do a lot of damage, but you just don't have a ton of value that tracks with that trait throughout the entirety of the game, and that's why it's lower on the lower half of the list. Now, we're getting into the top of the list right now. This is the one that's right smack dab in the middle at number 6. It is going to be the Brawler Synergy. Now, Brawler was really, really good at the beginning of Season 2. We all remember that, where that was really just the entire meta was the Brawler team. That's changed a bit, not as broken, but still pretty decent. You know, the cards themselves, you know, you have the Barbarian and you have the P.E.K.K.A and you have the Prince. Those are some mid-tier cards, and you also have the Mega Knight, who's a bit better, especially when paired with Ace. So overall, they're just going to give you some value. You can run them late into the game, and they definitely are cheaper, which is why they're going to be good with Lung, they're going to be good with King, they can be run with Battle Machine, those rulers that have a harder time generating Elixir than Spirit Empress. And it's just consistent. I mean, having that extra HP is really helpful in some cases, especially when you're trying to counter other teams or pairing that with other teams. You know, they are really the main true frontline comp now, the one that helps with survivability the most. Obviously, Juggernauts are taken out of the game, and so the only trait remains that really gives a ton of extra survivability is the Brawler trait, and that's why they're really good with Lung, where you can stack some good backline units behind them and allow them to carry the damage while your Brawlers protect the backline units. So just a good balance of card skill plus, you know, trade boosting. It's definitely not broken by any means. Could it even use a bit of a buff? Possibly. But I just think that it's consistent enough to be kind of at that mid-range of the traits. All right, now we're into the top 5. And number 5, I went back and forth on this a lot. Honestly, within the 5 here, I'm open to suggestions. Like, let me know what you guys think. This is just how I feel like I've been playing with them and where I feel the real, you know, busted ones come. Obviously, there's one at the top that's going to be obvious. But the next one I have on the list is going to be Ranger. Is Ranger broken? No. Is it consistent? Yeah, and that's where I think the value comes from it. You know, with the few changes that were made over the last few seasons, especially since the Goblin Queen dominance, Ranger's kind of fallen out of the top, like out of the best team a bit, and that's really good. Obviously, the cards are still decent. You have the Dark Goblin, which is really good. Skeleton Dragons. Real Giant is pretty good, as well as Queen is very good. And those are all great cards. And the trait itself is really strong because of that, but I just don't think it's up to the same level that the others are. I just don't think it's as consistent. You know, you get that Dark Goblin going, and he's good, but the reason that they can be countered is because of Monk, and Monk reflects that damage and can beat those units very easily. You know, you have something like a Witch as well, who's spawning a ton of skeletons, and the Rangers just aren't able to do damage. Obviously, nobody on that team does splash damage. They are all single target units, which makes it harder to get through some of those frontline troops, especially the skeletons that just you know, completely take over the entire field. So because of that and some of those few limitations, I don't think they're better than the other backline comp, but I still think they are very strong. Definitely use them. I mean, the cards themselves are incredible. I haven't really played much of the full 4 out of 4. It's definitely a 2 out of 4 that I put in here or there, whether with a clan team or a superstar team or something of that effect. And I just think that there's a lot of different ways you can use them. But as far as the 4 out of 4 put together, I don't really think that they're in the true top meta right now. Number 4 is going to be Blaster. Blaster, I think, fills in some of those gaps that the Rangers do not. The Blaster troops are also very, very good. Executioner is awesome. Princess is awesome. Spear Goblin, for how cheap he is pretty good. Wizard is actually really good this season when paired with Clan. Just a very cheap way to do some really good backline damage. And that's what they are. They're backline damage that's cheap, that's consistent. You know, all of them do splash damage except for Spear Goblin, so they're very good into the Witch and just some other, you know, even the Skeleton Dragons that can spawn and get very, very clumpy, and that's what they're really valuable for. You know, you can play them with Superstar, you can play them with all different kind of comps, play them with Clan. There's a lot of value, and just, you know, the fact that they have a Superstar, well, you can play them. They don't have a Superstar within the team, but they go well with Superstar. They have an Ace in the team. They have a Clan member in the team. Just a lot of value that you can put them in with other comps, and you can play in the 4 out of 4 with a few other pairings here and there, and it just makes them overall a very consistent team. Better than Ranger, in my opinion. I think they pair with more, and they're more you know, flexible in the way you can use them, and just overall more consistent. That's why I have them at number 4. At number 3 is going to be the Ace Synergy. Might be unexpected to you all, but I think that the Monk really benefits from having the Captain trait. He is really a one-man show. He can completely counter some entire backlines with that. And once the superstars are kind of changed and the Monk himself is nerfed and maybe some other changes in there, this list at the top might change. quite a bit, but I think right now, you put Superstar on Bandit, you put the Captain thing on Bandit, she's gonna go crazy. Executioner's gonna do insane damage. Monk is gonna reflect everything and never die. Even with Mega Knight jumping to the back line and still having that extra damage and HP and survivability, makes that jump and those stuns much more valuable because he's able to survive and do it for longer and actually do damage with those jumps and those stuns. Just makes it overall a very, very consistent team to get CC through, to deal good damage. Because, with Goblin Machine gone, your 2 CC cards are going to be Bandit and Mega Knight, and that's really it. And the fact that they're in the same team means that you can shut down, obviously Musketeer and E-Giant, but obviously they're in a higher tier of trait. But yeah, the CC you can get from the Bandit and the Mega Knight is very good. You can counter some very good teams with them. Just overall, a ton of versatility. The Captain trait is just so huge. Like 4 out of 4 gives you 70% bonus damage and 70% healing for damage dealt. And that's just crazy, crazy stats. Those are crazy stats that really, really help your team out. There's some flexibility with comp. Obviously, you can get some blasters in there. You can get some brawlers. You can get some assassins. You can get superstar. That's what I do. Throw in a blaster, throw in a superstar. They're just going to go crazy and really, really help your team out. The Ace trait is very good, and that's why it's number 3. Number 2 is going to be the Clan trait. Now, Clan has been always close to the top of the meta. Had that kind of a little bit of a break in Season 2. Clan Avenger and some Clan Undead stuff was pretty good with Lung especially. And so there was a bit of it in Season 2, but Season 1 was Clan. And they're not quite back to that tier. I think the Superstars are the Clan Avengers of this season, but Clan is right up there, and the troops themselves are not crazy, but they're well, okay. The Barbarian is a mid card, but just does very, very well with Clan. Valkyrie does incredibly well with Clan with that extra healing. Wizard obviously is a very good card, and Archer Queen is an incredible card. Just having all that extra survivability makes them very, very good. Plus the synergies that you can pair with them. Get a Blaster in there, get a Ranger in there, and let your Barbarian and your Valkyrie tank, and they're going to do very, very well. Again, one of the same reasons that Brawlers is not at the bottom of the list, Clan is at the top of the list because of the survivability. And survivability on your team is harder and harder to come across in the game with Juggernauts removed. And so having those really strong frontline units in Valkyrie and Barbarian are going to be very helpful in protecting your backline from getting completely destroyed by your opponents. Plus, you have that extra damage coming in with the hit speed bonus that they get. It's kind of an all-encompassing trait. Give them the healing, give them the hit speed, allow them to do that extra damage. Just a very, very consistent trait, especially with Lung because it is so cheap. You have 2 elixir cards and a 3 elixir card. Obviously, Queen is 5, but having those cheap cards, the Wizard, the Valkyrie, the Barbarian is very good in Lung, very good in Battle Machine, very good in King. Just having that cheap way to build a team is honestly the biggest benefit to Clan. Superstars are expensive. Ace is incredibly expensive. You can't afford those teams when you're playing one of those rulers that struggles generating elixir, and so you have to have a consistent cheap team, and that's what Clan is. Very, very good across the board. Just has a ton of application, even with an Empress player, able to get a 3-star Queen and you just take over the entire game. Very, very good team, and that's why I have him at number 2. Number 1, obviously, is going to be the Superstar trait. This is the best trait that we've ever seen come to the game. It is the strongest at its peak than anything else has ever been, even Clan Avenger. You get a 3-star Superstar team. It is completely unbeatable, no matter what your opponent has, unless you really mess up the positioning, and very rarely does that happen. So obviously, it's made up out of the Monk, the E-Giant, the Witch, and the Musketeer. Very, very strong cards, each of them in their own right. Monk with that damage reflection and that healing that he gets. He's a one-man frontline comp. Again, the theme of this video has been some of those comps that have a very good frontline are going to be very good in the meta because of the Juggernauts being removed. And that's what Monk is. Just able to heal, reflect a ton of damage. Very, very strong card at the front line. Obviously, Witch is maybe the best card in the game with all those skeletons that she can generate over and over and over again, making herself a one-man army on offense, while Monk is the one-man army on defense. Plus, the skeletons are good on defense. You go into an Expo, and the Expo is just going to have to mow through each one of those skeletons before you can even get to your real units. also just makes it very hard for for rangers to get damage against them with those skeletons in the way. And then you have the Musketeer and the E-Giant, who both just do crazy stuns. The knockback from the Musketeer is incredible, kind of clumping up the units so that your skeletons can move forward and kind of push your entire team. It's like an army strategy game now with superstars, because they just take over the entire game and mold it in the way that allows you to win. E-Giant with those crazy stuns is always awesome. You can pair him with all different kinds of stuff. Pair him with some rangers, pair him with some blasters, pair him with some ace. They're going to do very well regardless of who you put them with. What's funny is that you obviously have the giant. Oh, I forgot about the giant trait. I can't believe I forgot about that. Yeah, giant trait I would say is probably right below Brawler and above P.E.K.K.A. because of that extra HP. Very simple, very, very straightforward. I can't believe I got this far and forgot the giant trait. So that's going to be what, I guess 7, and then everything else is 12. Yeah, so that's going to be funny. I'll fix some of that in the editing. I'll just put it in there. But yeah, that's what I think about Superstar. Very, very good. Incredible trait. Best in the game. If you agree with me, you have to drop a thumbs up. If you disagree with me, drop a thumbs up, but also let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you guys for watching the video, as always, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.